Blizzard did a blog post, right? But that blog post, I think it was kind of recapping a lot of things.
Yeah,
that we've sort of already seen.
Nothing new in it. I think it was just an up-to-date, like, because the original post that they showed it off ages ago, and like what they did with the in the reveal, they showed it off, all that stuff, and a lot of that was clearly mock-up UI, as opposed to actually finished and working. But then this is like a blog post of, hey, here's how it literally looks in beta. Here's actual work we've done, as opposed to work we will do in time, we promise. So that's most of that there.
So I'm just looking at the style.
Yeah, that's the same style they showed off at the reveal.
Yeah, so if we look like up here, right?
Yeah, they're the old ones.
This is an old frame.
Yep.
Now, what was heartening to me is this image.
Yeah, they brought that back up again.
Yeah, they brought that up, and that indicates that the new, more clean style of frames is like it hasn't been cut or anything, because surely if that was being cut, they wouldn't show this screenshot. Now, this screenshot kind of does look like the one they showed off at the event. Maybe it is literally the same screenshot. It literally is. It literally is. But I mean, at least the inclusion of it here means we're probably still going to get that rework player and target frame.
Yeah.
So that's basically the situation. I think our overall opinion so far is, yeah, it's really good. It's a very massive improvement, so we like that. That said, they do definitely need filtering for the buffs and debuffs.
Yeah,
it's going to be a sort of useless feature unless that's there.
Yeah, I think there's stuff for that that's clearly still broken. Actually, I'm not sure. I haven't tested it too hard anymore. But there's a couple things where I kind of struggle with. They seem to be testing stuff for that, right? Where I was seeing when I was playing, not in this recent patch, but the last time I was fiddling around with, I think it was Warlock. Yeah, it was Warlock because I was playing AF. And there were a couple of things that were interesting about the, the personal resource display thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't used that natively since maybe BFA, maybe Legion, it was new. But it was showing the debuffs I had on my target on that personal resource bar, but they were clearly broken, weren't showing duration, they were clearly busted and not working as intended, sometimes duplicating. But it was that thing of, hey, here's one place you can see everything that's important. And that kind of matches with how WeakAuras have been kind of doing UI design for a little while, which is everything is in this square, which includes your debuffs on target. So if you're targeting a target, you'll have your agony, your unstable corruption, your corruption. I nearly forgot what it's called because I said unstable corruption, but those will be there, and unstable affliction, not unstable corruption. But yeah, they're there in the middle of the screen. So it seems like they're trying to do a little bit of that with the personal resource display, or they're testing it and it wasn't super working. So I think that their end goal, I think, will be to mimic as much of that as possible.
Yeah.
It's just as to how far they get and how much it works and how good the filter, like you said, the filters, because adding a custom filter is a hell of a lot of work. And one of the things that people don't notice this about using LVOI, right? That, and to an extent with platers sometimes as well, I think depending on the import you use, there are filters that say, okay, there's 47 shitty debuffs on this guy. Here are the ones you need to know. And that's really important for the raid debuff indicator, because we've been having problems with that recently, where your LVI setup doesn't appear to work whatsoever with the default filters, which means you don't see things that you should be dispelling, stuff like that. And that's the thing where that's super important to the information. There's so much junk information in World of Warcraft. You need to know the actual stuff that's important, and it's really very difficult to get that by default. As far as I understand, the LVI team put a lot of work into those filters and making sure they're updated for raids and stuff like that, so they know, hey, we know this is the boss ability that you need to know someone has, so here it is. It's right there in the middle of the frame. It only shows that, because I keep debuffs and buffs off my raid frames, because that's all just junk. It's only the filtered one. Whatever the third party add-on says, this is important, this is actually good. But will Blizzard be able to put that work in and go, hey, we've marked on our back end, we've marked this boss ability as important. Mm-hmm. Will they be able to do that and have that filter through? Or is it going to be like we don't really have the time and capacity to do that, and then people who are playing with And this is the fundamental thing that's kind of weird, where you can make this as good as possible, but if the default is not as good as add-ons, then you've ultimately kind of failed in a way. Yeah. But it's also super hard to get to that point.
It's like things like, say, the weak auras that just do an entire season of dungeons and all the shit you need to react to. Blizzard will never put that in the game, and they never should put that in the game. No. That would start to feel weird. They should just telegraph things well in their bosses.
Yes.
But I think,
which they do
in the way that loads of us go to like Luxthros, Athanar, and stuff, I think it's good if, they're still there as an option, probably for maybe players like you and me, but it would be nice if the default was good enough that loads of people who don't enjoy using weak auras but feel like they have to, that they can just like opt out. I guess the thing, slight hopium huff, but because I remember how just like insanely outdated and weird a lot of Blizzard's Lua stuff was for like for the frames that have been in the game for such a long time. This is from our old add-on project where kind of brushed up against some of that. I wonder if they've re-architected a hell of a lot of shit to the point where it's it's following more modern just like more modern, coding principles, right?
I think they would have to,
Yeah. So they've probably done that. That should mean that it's more of a solid platform that they can then develop off. I'd imagine that at the very least, because you don't go and do a UI revamp in this way without building yourself the tools that you're going to need to do that revamp.
Yeah, and you can see that especially when it comes to they're taking so long to get the character frame in. And you're thinking, why are they taking that long? And it's probably because they want to build as much functionality into that character frame as possible.
Yeah.
For even stuff like vehicles. Hey, here's a vehicle version of it, because the way they tend to nest that. And here's a really cool version of that shows you and your vehicle together, or something along those lines, as opposed to just being kind of you and then you being kind of superseded in a little tiny shitty one. But then also like buffs and debuffs, stuff like that being handleable in a way that works. Because that's basically like the most work out of it all. But then there's also some parts like the chat bar being in this update now part of the on like the moving stuff. So it's like that probably wasn't rebuilt from the ground up. They probably had to go back and figure out whatever was like or whatever part of their code was doing the position for that, and then go, well, here we'll move it over to this system now. So that's probably one of the ones that would have been easy, a little bit of work, but the character frame is like, we need to build something. Actually, let's do it right, because we've not changed this in, we've been fiddling with the same stuff for like 17 years. Why not do it right now?
Yeah, indeed. So another nice UI thing actually is talent stuff. Oh yeah. So this is really cool. Each talent loadout will save your action bars. So whenever you swap talent loadouts, it'll swap your bars for you. So that's all well and good.
Basic add-on functionality.
Yeah, good that it's there. Yep. I guess if you had, say, 2 or 3 builds of the same spec, that's why that would be really useful. Then talent search, right? Where it will highlight a talent in the tree. So just on the talent window, there's a little search box. It'll highlight whatever you put into it. So that's quite good. The talents obviously are in these big, trees, all these links. It could be a bit hard to find the one you're looking for. So that's really cool. You can also inspect another player's talents, which
you can always do, but now you can do it for this one.
Yeah, it works for this one. I suppose this talent system, it does offer more unique and fun opportunities for people to have insane builds. I still remember the time.
Oh, you can build so wrong.
This is, of course, back when hunters used pets all the time. But I remember I was running a bunch of Zul'Farrak, and I was like level 50. And beside me, I just see this other hunter in Gadgetzan. And hunter had no pet.
Yeah,
this person had missed, flat out, just missed the quest to get a pet. Leveled all that time without a pet.
That's so brutal.
This is, of course, way back in the day. But yeah, I wonder what just weird builds you're going to see people roll with now that, there are so many more toys, meaning there are so many more ways to kind of build wrong. But to maybe help people fix that, there is the importing of loadouts. You can import and share talent builds, which is pretty great.
Yeah, it's a thing where I was like, that's That's interesting because there's no way an add-on wasn't going to do that immediately because that's
Yep.
what people want for all of that stuff. People have like their UI loadouts saved, and that's maybe the one thing they're kind of missing, import and share for UI loadouts as well. Because you can always just dump stuff to strings. That's everyone can do that handy enough now. But it was interesting kind of thinking about the possibility for busted builds. Because especially when you hit level 60, you know, you're just logging into Dragonflight for the first time. You really can go like, because of how they've oriented the class tree specifically, because it's really hard to kind of mess up a, well, okay, you could definitely mess it up, but it's hard to miss fairly important stuff for like utility in your spec tree because there's no utility in there basically. It's just your own performance. You can do weird stuff like not have a major cooldown, but in the class trees, you can, as an example, you can at level 60 go basically without an interrupt as a prop pala.
Yeah.
Because the ret is supposed to go down the right side because Mad Paragon's at the bottom. A lot of the stuff that boosts ret's down there. Then the left side is holy stuff, where you get a whole lot of like Word of Glory boosts and a couple little things that are clearly very nice for healing. And then down the middle, you kind of have your wings and a couple other things. And at the bottom, there's Seraphim or Sanctified Wrath. But at level 60, you can like go down the left-hand side to get more tanky kind of stuff. Take a slight detour over to the right to get a bit more of the red stuff. But then you can just not take Rebuke and get one of the capstones at the bottom. And you're just like, people will have really scuffed builds, basically, is what I'm trying to say. People will have really scuffed builds until they hit level 70 and they can't really have a scuffed build. But that's kind of just crazy that that's there. Do like Riffin had suggested talents and builds. That's one thing that I hope they do that. Maybe they'll do that through their own like website and stuff, as opposed to in game because they'd have to build a whole UI feature to do that. But that would actually be very important because I know Lost Ark does that as well, and it's actually pretty helpful for players who are like just going whatever. I don't know. It's too much choice. Shit.
Yeah, it's like, hey, they just go to Wowhead anyway, but they don't know that they would go to Wowhead, and then maybe they end up looking at a Noxit guide from 5 years ago and they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and then there was the only other thing was there's this weird thing where I was immediately thinking, okay, well, here is the downside because we gotta look at the negatives because apparently I'm always negative, but you gotta look at the kind of, oh well, if people can just share and import, then no one's going to be creative. No one's going to make their own build. They're all going to go to WoWhead and copy paste. You're like, they were going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
It's just the step has now been removed to not just... you don't have to like alt-tab between to check you're going the right path anymore. It's just copy, paste, and done. And an add-on was going to do that anyway. So it's actually pretty smart that they're going... Players are going to metagame. Let them metagame. Go for it. Work away. Just copy, paste. Sweet. You do that for... UI layouts as well now. Thank you. Thank you.
Ah, dear. Yeah, so, like, hey, we're getting there. Add-ons are enabled.
Yep. So
that's pretty big.
Developers start absolutely going completely ham because you don't have very long to get all your stuff working. And especially for anyone working on the UI stuff because you're going to have to re-architect a lot of your stuff, I imagine, to work with the changes they've made.
And I think one thing, too, that will allow people to like, well, okay, character copy is also enabled, so you can copy your character over, and I suppose soon enough, you'll also be able to copy over your UI. So that way, you're playing the beta in a way where it looks and feels like you're set up from live. And
that's pretty important.
There's certainly value in being able to test in that way.
Yeah, that's the thing that always gets me is whenever I'm trying to play on alphas or like early betas, I'm just like, this is not like for like. I'm getting a profoundly different experience here, and to me that often means especially because of like the different approach you take as well. It feels like I'm playing a more pure form of World of Warcraft, as opposed to the heavily add-on and heavily kind of metagamed version that I play whenever I'm playing live because I've got LVUIs lined up. I've got a generally better eye line of sight. All of the lines of UI lining up and looking nice. Whereas, I'm playing with default UI and it's more, there's just a big frame around my thing and I can't really see all that clearly. So combat feels a bit more scuffed. I'm kind of looking around a little bit more. I'm finding it hard to enjoy playing obviously it's been less this case because you can move your action bars a little bit. But even having like the cast bar really scuffed for a part of
Yeah.
alpha would have me sitting going like, well, I just can't really play this optimally, so I don't really enjoy it as much.
Well, yeah,
not that I'm supposed to enjoy it, but the point is that I just don't feel comfortable enough to go,
Yeah.
oh yes, this is how I play World of Warcraft, so I know what, like, in my head the comparison is more obvious when I'm playing it the same way.
Well,
And that's
yeah,
the
like
awkward
a
part.
game will get ruined by having a UI and control scheme that, you know, either you're not used to or
Yeah.
isn't as good.
Yeah,
So
which,
for a lot of people with add-ons, they've tailor-made what they want, what they're comfortable
yeah.
with.
So on that note, I'm just going to say one thing, and it's never going to happen, but I'm going to, at this moment, petition Blizzard for it anyway, because I'm sure very important people Blizzard are watching this live stream.
Oh, yes.
Can we please, just one time, can we please have alpha or beta servers in Europe? Please. Because playing the game with an extra 100 milliseconds of latency genuinely changes the experience in a very negative way for people from Europe. It is not the same game. It is substantially harder and more annoying, and I start to attribute things like not interrupting stuff in time to being a core frustration of, like, the combat design.
Empowered
as a-
abilities.
As opposed to, part abilities, especially the early iteration.
High ping.
Yeah, no, the first iteration of that before it got better when I started to use the press to
Yeah.
hold thing. That one was better, but like it's not good. Not good with 120 ping. If you're playing that in your own server, please fix that. It's bad. It's
Yeah.
bad.